He fought wars for his country, but his greatest battle began after retirement, when he saw a child who couldn't walk. In a quiet neighborhood in Texas, USA, lived a 72-year-old retired Army veteran named George Miller. For more than 30 years, George had served his country with honor. He had faced danger, survived harsh winters, and protected lives on distant battlefields. But after retirement, his life became painfully silent. No early morning drills, no soldiers to lead, no missions to complete. Just an empty house and long, lonely days. Every morning, George would sit on his small wooden porch with a cup of black coffee, watching cars pass by. He often wondered if his life still had a purpose. One afternoon, everything changed. While walking to the nearby grocery store, George noticed a young boy sitting on the sidewalk outside the store. The boy looked about 8 years old. His name was Daniel. Daniel had a big smile, but his legs were weak and thin. Beside him was an old, broken wheelchair with one missing wheel. The chair was rusty, unstable, and clearly unsafe. George stopped. He looked closely at the wheelchair and felt a deep ache in his chest. As a soldier, he had seen injured comrades struggle to move. He knew how important mobility was to dignity and freedom. George gently asked the boy, "Hey son, why aren't you using your wheelchair?" Daniel looked down and said quietly, "It's broken, sir. My mom says we can't afford a new one." Those simple words hit George harder than any battlefield explosion. That night, George couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Daniel, about the broken wheelchair, the helpless smile, and the family that couldn't afford help. At 2 a.m., George got out of bed, walked into his dusty garage, and turned on the lights. Inside the garage were old tools, metal scraps, and pieces of equipment he had collected over the years. Suddenly, an idea formed in his mind. "If the family can't buy a wheelchair," he whispered to himself, "I'll build one." The next morning, George began working. He measured carefully. He cut metal pieces with precision. He tightened bolts and tested wheels again and again. For 3 straight days, George worked tirelessly. His hands became sore. His back ached, but he refused to stop. Finally, on the 4th day, the wheelchair was ready. It was simple, but strong, smooth wheels, comfortable seat, safe brakes. George loaded the wheelchair into his old pickup truck and drove to Daniel's house. When Daniel saw the shiny new wheelchair, his eyes widened with disbelief. "Is that for me?" he asked. George smiled and nodded. Daniel's mother covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her face. She kept repeating, "Thank you, thank you. We could never afford this." George gently helped Daniel sit in the wheelchair. For the first time in months, the boy rolled forward smoothly across the yard. He laughed loudly, pure joy filling the air. Neighbors stopped and stared. Some began clapping. At that moment, George felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. But the story didn't end there. A neighbor recorded the moment on her phone and posted it online. Within days, the video spread across social media. Thousands of people watched the retired soldier helping a child walk again. Comments flooded in. "A true hero. A kindness still exists. This man deserves respect." Soon, local news reporters arrived at George's house. They asked why he built the wheelchair. George simply replied, "I spent my life protecting people. I'm still doing the same thing, just in a different way." The video reached charities and community groups. Donations started pouring in: metal parts, tools, and funds. With the support, George transformed his small garage into a tiny workshop. From that day forward, he made a promise. Town would be left without a wheelchair. Week after week, George built more wheelchairs, each one carefully crafted, each one given away for free. Children who once stayed indoors began going to school again. They played outside. They laughed with friends. Parents cried tears of gratitude. And George, once lonely and retired, became busier than ever. But this time, his mission wasn't war. His mission was... One evening, as the sun set over the neighborhood, George sat on his porch again with his cup of coffee. But now the silence felt different. In the distance, he could see children rolling happily down the street in the wheelchairs he had built. He smiled softly and whispered, "A soldier never stops serving. He just finds new ways to help."